Well, welcome to Bold Women Lawyers Spotlight. I am really, really happy to have with us today Aman Costigan. She is a fascinating lawyer. She is a lawyer in Canada, which is one of my favorite places. I love vacationing in Canada. She's a lawyer in Canada, but she also teaches yoga for lawyers, which I think is just a fascinating combination. So today we want to talk to her about not only her law practice, but her business teaching yoga for lawyers and what the benefits are and why the benefits of yoga in particular are so important for lawyers. So without further ado, I will welcome Aman. Welcome. We are thrilled to have you. And thank you for agreeing to talk to us today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I just want to jump right in. So, I gave the intro. You're a lawyer. You're a yoga teacher. Let's start with your practice as a lawyer. What area do you practice in? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I like to think that I practice in one of the sexiest areas of the law. So I do professional discipline or professional regulatory, so administrative law. And basically in Canada, in the province that I live, professions are regulated by colleges. And so when dentists, accountants, doctors are facing disciplinary proceedings, they go through the equivalent of a trial, what's more informal though, but through a college proceeding. And so I'm involved in that generally, either from independent counsel to the decision maker or on behalf of the complaints director acting as prosecution.
So that's pretty high stress area of law, not only for your clients, but certainly for you. Was that the stress that you felt in your practice as a lawyer? Is that what led you to yoga, or did you have a yoga practice even before you started practicing law?
So when I look back now, the timing of when I started working as a lawyer and when I started the yoga practice that I've been doing for the last 9 years, they both started at the same time. So that was pretty interesting now that I look back, but at the time I thought that they had nothing to do with each other. Like I was just looking for yoga to go to a retreat, and then I loved the retreat so much that I wanted to follow that teacher, and she's been my teacher for the last 9 years, but I never really looked at the timing of becoming a lawyer and this yoga practice.
So how do you think when you first started practicing law and the yoga practice, how do you think the yoga practice helped you in your practice as a lawyer?
I think at the beginning, I didn't really notice it. I was so disconnected, which I didn't know at the time, but I was so disconnected from my own body that when you were told, like, listen to your body and, feel within, or like, what do you feel? I didn't feel anything. I was kind of numb to any sort of like feelings in my body, I think, because I had been so used to working harder, I need to be doing more. I didn't have a doctor for the first 5 years of my practice. I didn't take appointments during the day. Like, I just think I was so focused on learning and the uphill, like the steep learning curve when you're a new lawyer, that I was just so focused on that I was really looking at my body as a machine, and I was in survival mode for quite a long time.
So what changed that for you?
I think the yoga practice, so I've been doing it continuously. So I usually go on Monday nights for 2 hours. And so a lot of people are like, for 2 hours, that's really long. In addition, my teacher loves yoga so much that she usually keeps us past the 2 hours. But I was benefiting so much just from that 1 2-hour session every week, because I could, even though I didn't notice it at the time, I could just tell that when I did go, I showed up differently throughout the week. So I was less reactive. I noticed I was quite angry in the beginning of my legal practice. Like, I had a very short fuse with my husband. Currently, he was my boyfriend then, which is no way to treat somebody. And I think with like my family, I just didn't have the patience that I now have, like that I now recognize. And I have built in this sort of, I can see myself reacting. I can see myself on edge. I can see the stress in my body, and I'm able to have awareness of that and then kind of step back and decide how I want to respond versus the reactive response, which is usually the one all of us want to erase or undo in some way.
And I think that's very common with lawyers, that somewhat angry, very reactive response. And yet, many times, we never learn how to deal productively with it. We can all deal very non-productively with it, but we don't learn how to find a good way to handle those emotions. And you said something interesting, and I want to go back to that because it really does start with awareness. How did you develop that awareness so that you even knew you were in that reactive mode?
I think with over time, that yoga practice that I was doing, that was 2 hours of no cell phone and being with yourself, right? And I think that those are two of the things that a lot of us run away from. Being quiet with yourself and your own thoughts. Like all lawyers that I know usually want to run the other way from anything that has to do with being with yourself and hearing your own thoughts and not having the distractions and hearing what's coming through. Reflecting on your day, being with yourself, learning about yourself, connecting with yourself. All of those things that I had built up from that practice, and now over 9 years, I think started to build up and has slowly been reaping benefits for me and has allowed me to see differently.
Mm-hmm. So as you started to develop that awareness, over time, are there sort of tips that you have learned, or things that you have learned that might help other people just develop that awareness part?
Yeah, I think one of them is just taking time, even if it's just in the shower, like you extend your shower for a minute or two before you get out, because it can be hard to do that morning routine or that evening routine where there's meditation or, to get into that habit. And so I think we're already doing so many things. And so I like to just start easy and say, how about another minute or two in the shower, and just like put your hands on your chest, or maybe one on your chest and one on your tummy, and just close your eyes and just breathe and just notice what you notice.
I love that. And that's such a simple way to start, but a very doable way to start, because I think sometimes we all start to feel a little overwhelmed, like, oh, it's one more thing I have to do. I have to be mindful and aware and, be with myself. And that's just added to my to-do list. How do I fit it in? So what a great tip. Just an extra minute or two in the shower, because we're all in the shower every day for sure. That's a wonderful tip. So let me get back to, practicing law, high stress. It's a high stress profession, no matter what you do, what area, practice you might be in. But there certainly are some areas that are much higher stress than others. And I think you definitely are in one. Litigation is certainly high stress. A lot of corporate work is high stress. The demands from clients are very high. And particularly in the type of work that you're describing, where you're dealing with other people, your clients, their professional lives, right? Depending on what the outcome of the case is. So there's a big emotional component, and many types of law practice do have that emotional component to it for the client. So when you're working with a client and you feel that stress, and you feel maybe their emotion is being reflected back at you, or you may feel the anxiety because you understand the heaviness, what I call the heaviness of their case, are there ways that you found through your work doing yoga to help sort of tamp that down or to deal with it more effectively?
Yeah, I think when I can notice it, or when I see it even in others, is like shoulders are high up near your ears, right? Or you're leaning forward towards something, like whether it's towards the screen or on the desk, like you're kind of in that reaction, like I'm ready to react. So when I notice that happening, and tension in just my body, which if you're just starting out connecting to your body, you might not have it yet, but it will come as soon as you start to open yourself up to it and you're patient with yourself. But whenever I notice those situations, I know that I need to do something for myself to release the situation. So sometimes it can be going for a walk around the block. So I don't have time to go for a half an hour leisurely walk and do all of these things, but I can go around the block in 5 minutes. So I could do something like that. Another thing is like just cleansing like my hands from the top of my head and just like shaking off, whatever kind of came through that I feel like I'm wearing. That's not mine, but I've picked it up from the environment or the situation that I was in. So just physically kind of letting go. I'm also big into playing like a really good song that like really hypes you up and really makes you happy. And then just like dancing for, whether it's 1 minute or you can do the whole song, just kind of letting your body release and rather than keeping it, because the more we keep, the stress builds and layers up on top of each other, and then our bodies harden and create that disconnect and that lack of connection with ourselves.
Totally. Yeah. No, great tips. Those are great tips. So tell me what led you to, you're busy enough as a lawyer, right? Because as I understand, you're a partner in your law firm, right?
That's right.
And so you're really busy as a lawyer, but you decided then to add on to that and begin teaching yoga for lawyers. You have your own company, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, and it's Beyond Yoga for Lawyers. So people can go look that up. So tell us a little bit about that journey. How did you go from I'm a busy lawyer who does yoga to I'm a busy lawyer who's going to start another business teaching yoga to lawyers?
So high achiever. I became a partner, and I was about the 6-year mark where I was able to kind of see beyond the day to day and look at my life and be like, is this what I want? Is this why I went to school? Am I living the way that I want to live my life? And some things were missing for me. And one of them was I felt this pull or this desire to have my own business, my own thing where I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. Nobody had to review my emails. I didn't have to wait to check if I could send something out before. I didn't have to rely on anyone else in the sense of somebody approving me and what I wanted to do. And so I wanted to start a business that had no rules. And that's what I ended up doing. So I picked one. I had a few different ideas. And at the end of 2020, I ended up picking yoga. And at first, I didn't want to teach to lawyers, actually. And I think part of it was because I was scared. I was afraid of, judgment or not being good enough. And I was worried. So once I kind of sat with that and then realized that I was the best person to teach lawyers because I get it, I'm living it, I then changed my tune a little bit and have now flipped into loving the fact that I'm able to share yoga with lawyers because of my background and what I do.
So you decided in the middle of a global pandemic, right, that had been going on for almost a year, I think I'll start a yoga business. Now, most people, when they think of yoga, they think of going to a studio.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that thought process. You want to start a brand new business where normally people would be in person, but we're in the middle of a pandemic. So how did you work all that out?
I just started. I just decided because I had been thinking about doing my own thing, which I didn't know what it was at the time, in 2018. So I had been kind of ruminating on this for a while and wanting to do something. And every time I was sort of stuck or had myself in a researching and indecision situation. I was like, oh, I need to do more research about that. I need to figure out how you even teach on Zoom. I need to get the perfect lighting. I need to renovate the room before I do it. So I can't teach until I have all of these things. And once I realized that a lot of those things didn't matter, and that really I just needed to start and find out if there was any interest, like that's where it all started. Was I had to just decide that I was doing this, and then I had to pick a date that I was going to do my first class, and I had to go to my support network of Mastermind lawyer entrepreneurs and say, would you be willing for me to do a free class for you? And I just kind of started snowballing from there in terms of creating that demand.
So that's wonderful. And you're right. There's a million reasons why you can't start, but if you listen to all those, you will never start. Yeah. So you mentioned your mastermind of lawyer entrepreneurs. Tell us a little bit about that. What's that group all about?
Yeah, so it all happened around 2020, which I had made the decision to join a mastermind, a lawyer group mastermind in 2019. So it was pre-pandemic, but when I signed up, it ended up being the pandemic, which worked out because everybody was throughout North America. So it actually was one of those situations where I was able to take over to yoga and be like, yes, most people go to a studio, but I can offer a yoga class where we've got like-minded people who are looking for the same thing in a room from all over North America. And that's really what I've been able to create. And you would never meet these people if you went to your local studio. And so I decided I wanted to surround myself with other lawyer entrepreneurs. So lawyers who had businesses either on top of their practice or who had transitioned out and were having their own business. And they were usually probably doing some other things on top of that. And so I wanted to be part of that community. I was welcomed way more than I ever thought. I thought it was going to be more of a competitive atmosphere, but it wasn't. It was people who wanted to see you succeed and wanted to help you out in any which way they could.
Terrific. So now you said you offered to do it for free for them, and then take us through the journey to where you are now with your yoga business.
Yeah, so I actually got my first client through that mastermind. One of the lawyers was like, I'm the chair of this organization. I will pay you to come do a yoga class for my group. So then that ended up getting me some students to come into my group yoga classes that I now offer. And it ended up being podcast. So one of the girls, she had a podcast. And so she's like, I'll have you on my podcast. And I was like, oh no, I'm not ready for podcasts. I'm not ready. And she was just like, yeah, I'll put you on this day. I'll prep you on this day. This is what's going to happen. And so I remember I recorded on my birthday and I was just nervous. But I've since done, I think this is number like 6 or 7 now. And I've taught at live events. I've taught over 20 yoga classes to lawyers. I've done 2 speaking events like on mindfulness and walked through like 10 quick and easy mindfulness techniques specifically for lawyers, and ones you can do from like standing to sitting to court to family dinner. And I've been able to meet so many people along the way, including you, that has just completely blown my mind and been so rewarding.
That's wonderful. And it just really blossomed. So obviously there's a huge need out there for the work that you do for lawyers. So tell us a little bit about, like, are your classes now on Zoom? Are they all virtual classes? Or tell us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, they're all virtual classes. They're 1 hour a week. So from 7 to 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And basically, I give a list of equipment and I say, if you don't have, for example, a block, you can use binders and then you can wrap it in some like a blanket. Like, you don't have to have all of the things, because we all think you need to go out and get all of the different props. But I'm just like, if you don't have this certain thing, like you can use a chair. If you don't have this, you can use, like a couch or something like that. Like, there are always substitutions that you can find. And so I'm very big on just making it really easy, because that's what I would want as a lawyer. And then I also make sure that if any lawyers miss class, that I have a recap email. So I basically set out with images, sometimes with video, saying, here's what we did. If you want to do it, here's how you do it. Like, so you can do it on your own time, just so that if you ever miss a class, you never feel like you miss something and then you don't want to come back or something. And so I totally understand that. And I want to make sure that these lawyers are well supported in their journey.
Terrific. And so now when you have your class, is there an opportunity like for people to get to know each other, or is there a way they can, interact with one another, maybe outside of the class?
Yeah, so I had 17 lawyers in the first round that I did, and then in the second round I had 10. And this round I'm already at 7, and we're still 2 weeks away from registration closing. So I think it's going to be another wonderful group as well. And so what I like to do is I start the first class with just a check-in and an introduction. So like your background, where you're from, all that kind of stuff. So we can kind of figure out, okay, where are you on the map? Like, what do you do in terms of your practice, and anything else that they want to share. And then I always kind of start the class, every class at the beginning, just checking in with everybody and see how everybody's doing. And there is an opportunity at the end as well to like stay and ask questions if you want to hang out. And so I really do try to encourage that, connection, and telling people links like, oh, I met so-and-so like at that mastermind, or I met so-and-so actually on LinkedIn. That's how we know each other. And that's why, so-and-so is here.
Wonderful. Okay. And how often do you offer the classes, and how long do they last?
So I offered 2 sessions last year. So 2 8-week sessions. I started teaching the first round as 10 weeks, but that ended up being a little bit longer for lawyers. And so what I did is I shortened it to 2 months. That seems to be kind of the right amount. So normally I think I will offer two rounds of 8 classes in a year.
Okay. All right. And if this has been fascinating, now tell me from a yoga point of view, okay, is the yoga for lawyers different than what you would teach non-lawyers?
I say so, yes. And the reason is because I usually use examples. So I have an educational piece where I usually explain like why this is beneficial. And I know lawyers like to learn and to like know things like, why are we doing this? Why does this matter? So I like to answer those sorts of questions for anybody who has that desire to learn. And then I also like to try new things and give scenarios that lawyers experience. So whether it's that email from opposing counsel that you want to respond with in a reactive way, whether it's a family dinner that you're concerned about, whether it's a trial, whether it's a hearing, whether it's an important meeting, like whatever it is, I want to give tools that can work for lawyers to do. And I know we don't have a lot of time as lawyers. And so I like to try and give quick and easy ways, but ways that really work and help and open their minds to yoga, and just not being the yoga that you see kind of online in like the mainstream world. But I really like it to be different tools and techniques and a journey, like an individual journey of their own, because they have all told me their experiences, and it was nothing that I could have ever imagined for them.
Okay. Yeah. As you were talking, I'm thinking, gee, I wish when I was in a litigation practice, I had something like this available, because it would have been very helpful. But that's great. That's great. So listen, if our listeners want to learn more, want to get in touch, or are interested perhaps in joining one of your classes, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I hang out quite a bit on Instagram. So I'm at Beyond Yoga for Lawyers. And I'm also on LinkedIn, my first and last name. And then I also have a private Facebook group that can be found by going to beyondyogaforlawyers.com. And all information about classes is on there. The next round of classes that starts January 26th to March 16th. And then I'll have another round after that at some point, dates to be determined.
Okay. And for people who may be looking on LinkedIn, can you give them the spelling so they know how to find you?
Sure. So it's Aman, A-M-A-N, and then last name Costigan, C-O-S-T-I-G-A-N.
All right. Well, Aman, this has been fabulous. I have enjoyed every minute of it, and you have enlightened me greatly about why yoga, which I do find incredibly helpful, really why it is helping me, and just the tips that you gave us about how to respond when you find yourself reactive, because I still do, that's for sure. How to respond to that. It's been wonderful. So I thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. And listen, if you are interested in getting some yoga for lawyers, make sure you follow Aman on Instagram and connect with her on LinkedIn and take a look at Beyond Yoga for Lawyers. Thank you, Aman.
Thank you so much for having me.